Hey, Seven White. So the topic of today's lesson is food chains, food webs, and living things' energy roles in their ecosystem. In other words, how do they obtain their energy or how do they get their food? So you just watched a video, and I asked you as part of task one to watch the video and to go to slide 10, which is this slide right here, and to match up the terms that were on the left with their definitions on the right. So hopefully you guys moved food chain right here, which is the feeding relationships from one organism to another. And every food chain begins with producers. Producers are living things that can make their own food. And for us, it's mostly plants that get their food from the sun's energy and create their own source of food energy that they can use inside their cells. So the next term was herbivores. When you think of the word herb, and herb is like, basil and oregano and thyme, they're plants. So if a living thing is an herbivore, it's an organism that eats only producers. It eats only plants. There's another name for an herbivore, and it's a first level consumer. In other words, it's the first consumer in a food chain. Living things that eat herbivores are second level consumers. Second level consumers eat first level consumers. And herbivores are animals, so living things that eat only other animals are called carnivores. Second level consumers can also be omnivores if they also eat plants, but that's for another day. Okay. So, first level consumers eat plants, second level consumers eat the animals that eat plants, and third level consumers eat the animals that eat plants. They eat the second level consumers. So these things, producers, herbivores, carnivores, first level consumers, second level consumers, third level consumers, they are the energy roles that organisms have in their ecosystem. It's how they get their food. Now, every ecosystem also has living things called decomposers. Those decomposers a lot of times are fungi, like mushrooms or molds or mildews. Sometimes they're worms. Sometimes they're bacteria. Sometimes they are beetles. They are organisms that break down dead plant and animal matter and return their nutrients back into the soil so that the whole process can occur over and over and over again, so that energy is recycled as much as it can be within the ecosystem. Okay, so let's move on to slide 11. Slide 11, I'm asking you guys, and some of this is based on what you just watched, is to take these organisms up here and drag them to their correct category. Well, producers are always the easiest part because for us, they're going to be plants. Now, plants aren't the only producers. There's ecosystems in extreme environments that have living things that can produce their own food from chemicals, but that's for another day. So for us, producers are plants. So who in these pictures above here are animals that eat only plants? We've got an elephant. Elephants only eat plants. Crickets only eat plants. Giraffes are herbivores. Who else is an herbivore up here? Koalas, they eat bamboo. Bamboo is a producer. It's a plant. Do I have anybody else? Nope, I think I have everybody. So these herbivores could also be called first level consumers. Okay, so let's get all the consumers up here. Let's start with the second level consumers. So maybe living things that might eat these guys directly. I'll start off with this lizard right here. So the cricket eats the plant and the lizard eats the cricket. So he would be a second level consumer. Cricket would be a first level consumer because it eats another living thing. Okay. Now I'm going to drag in some things like lions here because lions can eat, I guess, giraffes and in extreme situations, elephants. So in that case, they would be a second level consumer if they ate an elephant directly. Other first level consumers up here, let's see. I don't know that we have anybody that a tiger can eat in our food chain, but yeah, tigers are carnivores. They would eat organisms that eat producers. Owls. Owls might eat lizards, which eat crickets, which eat plants. So plants would be the producer, crickets would be the first level consumer, lizards would be the second level consumer, and owls would be the third level consumer. We've got cats in here. Cats might eat mice that eat plants. Dogs. Dogs are consumers. Wolves are consumers. Okay. Living things that eat living things that eat producers. And then finally, our decomposers. From the video that you just watched, this is supposed to be a fungus. They break down dead plant and animal material. Worms break down dead animal and plant material. And finally, bacteria. Bacteria are decomposers. So the categories here are the categories of how these living things get their energy. They're their energy roles. Producers, herbivores are first level consumers. These guys could be either second or third level consumers depending on what they eat. And then decomposers break down all living things. Okay? All right, so now that we've assigned these living things to their energy roles in an ecosystem, let's go ahead and make a food chain. So go to slide 12. A food chain is an relationship. So if we go back here, it's a feeding relationship from one organism to another in an ecosystem. Food chains always begin with producers. They always begin with plants. So I'm going to pull this leaf down here because this is the one from the video. Okay, so next thing I'm going to pull down is something that would eat this leaf, which is the cricket. I have arrows here. These arrows point to the animal that's obtaining the energy from the thing it's eating. So we're pointing to the cricket. Think about the plant going into the cricket's mouth. Okay, the cricket is consuming the plant. Okay, so what consumes the cricket? The arrow points to the animal that's doing the eating. So this lizard would eat that cricket. So think about the cricket going into the lizard's mouth. That arrow points towards the lizard. Well, do we have anything here that might eat the lizard? Sure. An owl could eat the lizard. Okay. So we have, it says you need one producer, one herbivore, one second level consumer, one third level consumer, and then finally a decomposer. We've got three here. We've got bacteria, we've got worms, we've got fungi. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to pick bacteria. You could have picked either of the other two. It doesn't matter. And this is a food chain. Okay. Bacteria obtain their energy from dead owls, which obtain their energy from lizards, which obtain their energy from crickets, which obtain their energy from this leaf, which obtains its energy from the sun. All right, let's do another one real quick. Here's a producer, okay? We need an arrow. So if I want an arrow, I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to do copy, and then I'm going to do Control V. Control V is paste. So let's pick something that eats only grass. How about this elephant? Okay. This is a producer. This is an herbivore, which is also a first level consumer. Let's grab another arrow. Right click. Copy. Whoops, let's do that again. I messed that up. Let's go back. Right click. Copy. And Control V gives me paste. There we go. What might eat an elephant? Probably a lion. Okay. We need another arrow. Control V. There we go. A lion is at the top of the food chain. There's not a whole lot of things that can eat a lion. So we end every food chain with a decomposer. Here is an example of a decomposer. It's a worm. Producer, first level consumer, second level consumer, decomposer. Or you could say it a different way. Here is a producer, a herbivore, a carnivore, and a decomposer. Okay, these things are food chains showing the energy relationships. Now, what happens when you look at many animals within an ecosystem? And that's going to be slide 13. So food chains, when you put a lot of them together, form something called a food web. And that's all the feeding relationships within a particular habitat. And I'll just tell you guys, just like food chains begin with producers, so do food webs. This is grass, this is a tree. Okay, so what is a living thing here that might eat grass? So I left click on the end of this arrow and I drag it over to point towards the zebra. The zebra eats the grass. Okay. Let's look up here. Are there things that might eat a zebra? Sure. A lion might eat a zebra. Okay. So we're pointing towards the living thing that's doing the consuming. That's a food chain right there. Producer, herbivore, second level consumer. Producer, first level consumer, second level consumer. Okay. So what's something else that might eat grasses? Well, here's an antelope. Antelope. There you go. Now, what in this would eat an antelope? Oh, and by the way, guys, I am left clicking on these arrows, dragging them over. Okay. Then I click on the part of the arrow at the top, and I drag it to the thing that would eat it. Okay. So here's another food chain right here. So here's a tree. There is a caterpillar that might eat a leaf from a tree. Let me slide this up. So I am left clicking on this arrow, dragging it over. There we go. What might eat this little caterpillar? Well, if you've ever watched The Lion King, Pumbaa eats caterpillars. Okay. Are there things that might eat Pumbaa? Sadly, lions might eat warthogs. Hyenas might eat warthogs. Okay, let's keep going. So, anything else that might eat leaves from a tree? How about a ladybug? Ladybug, whoops, might eat leaves from a tree, right? What might eat a ladybug here? Maybe a bird. So, here's Zazu from The Lion King. He might eat a bug. What might eat Zazu? Well, maybe a hawk. Okay. So there's a couple of food chains. Now, what I didn't do is I like to go back and at the top of the food chain, I like to show that those nutrients from those living things get recycled by the decomposers. So I might grab here, pull him to, whoops, click on the top. I'm left clicking, pointing to the bacteria, which is a decomposer. So what I want you guys to notice is that producers will only have arrows pointing away from them ever because they're the start of the food chain, as opposed to decomposers will only have arrows pointing toward them. Okay, so let's follow another food chain real quick. Grass to antelope to lion to decomposer. Okay, so I'd like you guys maybe to do one more food chain on slide 13 and see what you can do. And then finally, slide 14 talks about, when we talk about food chains and energy relationships, let's go back to the energy part of that. So, what we find is that as we go up a level in a food chain, about 10% of the energy is lost. Okay. So when I eat a steak, I lose 10% of the energy that state contained, usually by like heat and by burning it up in whatever processes in my cells that I have going on, okay? So we show those energy changes, and this looks like a pyramid from Egypt because it is, but it's an energy pyramid. So if we look over here, to fill in the pyramid, type in the name of the organism, then underneath the name, the amount of energy present for each of the 4 levels of an energy pyramid. So I have to go back and I have to pick a food chain from my previous slide. So I start with the producer. So this is grass, okay? So down at the bottom is where my producers go. So my grass lost 10% of the energy from the source of energy it used to get its food. Well, producers all use the sun, okay? Here's the sun. It's got 5 million kilojoules per meter squared of energy. Don't worry about that unit, okay? But it's lost 10% of that in the process of photosynthesis. So how much energy does the grass have? To take 10% of a number like this, simply take away a 0. So instead of having 6 zeros, it's going to have 5. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it's got 500,000 kilojoules per meter squared energy in that ecosystem. So let's go back. An antelope ate the grass. Okay, so we're going to write our herbivore here, an antelope. Okay, antelope. If grass had 500,000 kilojoules of energy, take a 0 away from this to take 10% of it. So instead of having 5 zeros, I'm now going to have 5 with 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. 50,000 kilojoules of energy in the antelope, okay? So as we go up the food chain, more energy is being lost. So what eats the antelope? The lion. So in this particular food chain, the lion possesses 10% of the energy from the antelope. So take a 0 away. Instead of having 4 zeros, we're going to have 1, 2, 3. Lions have 5,000 kilojoules of energy. And at the top of the food chain is a decomposer. For us, there's the lion. Decomposer is bacteria. So up here, bacteria. Bacteria. Take a 0 away from 5,000. Whoops. 5,000 has 3 zeros. 10% of 5,000 is 500 kilojoules of energy. So as you go up a food chain, this pyramid is showing you that energy is being lost from one level to another. Okay, so this is the end of my screencast for you guys. So hopefully you understand today what a food chain is, what a food web is, and what an energy pyramid is. I will talk to you on Thursday. Have a great day. 7 White.